much. So our final presentation this evening, it will be by our fabulous Chief Executive, Julia Hanmer. Julia, if you can share your slides, please. Beautiful and a gorgeous photo to start. So Julia has been the BSBI Chief Executive for just over 6 months, and she'll be telling us a bit more about her background and her first priorities in taking BSBI's work forward. So over to you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Jodie. And it's wonderful to be here with you all tonight. So wonderful to have 204 of you joining us tonight. And I'm going to be talking about my roots, my background and experience, and what I hope I can bring to BSBI. Also, from the perspective of my first 7 months at the organisation, what I feel makes BSBI's roots, makes BSBI such a special society with such a brilliant organisation. And then also I want to talk about our shoots, our plans and priorities. So my first priorities in taking our work forward. I want to start with my roots. And I'll just tell you a little bit about my career and experience. So I've spent 30 years working in wildlife conservation for a variety of different wonderful organisations. That includes the Mammal Society, where when I joined, I was their only member of staff at that time, and then another person joined us, so we were just a team of 2, so quite a small organisation. I then moved to the Council Protection of Rural England, where I was in a team supporting their volunteers and their volunteers' activities and campaigns and training and development. And then I moved to Bat Conservation Trust, which I will tell you a little bit more about in a moment. I'm also a trustee of an environmental education charity near where I live in North London. It's EcoActive, and it's based in Hackney in North London. And I've trained as a forest school leader, and I've led forest school sessions for them. So all of this has given me various experience in leading research and monitoring programs. And at my work at the Bat Conservation Trust, I was leading on various different activities and programs, from research and monitoring, conservation advocacy and best practice, and for a range of different audiences. So from everything from arboriculturalists to the buildings industry and churches. And then education and outreach. Bats are very like Marmite. Everyone either loves them or hates them. So education and advocacy were really crucial. And our work was across the UK, but also partnership work across Europe. And I was founding chair of Bat Life Europe. And this has given me good knowledge of building conservation programs and monitoring programs, and the huge value of high quality research and monitoring data as an evidence base to influence decisions. And also the value of volunteers and how much volunteers can bring, and also knowledge of organisational development of all sorts of different sizes and types of organisations. So it's also given me a strong sense of my roots and what's important to me, and that's connection with people and connection with nature. And connecting people with nature, and growth, my individual growth, my personal growth and learning, but also organisational growth and learning. And I really like getting feedback and finding out more about how I can grow and learn from experience, and how organisations can grow and learn as well. And then also how to make an impact, and what makes a difference, both directly and by enthusing others and building partnerships. I was delighted to be offered the opportunity to become BSBI's Chief Executive in April, our first Chief Executive. And I was delighted because right from the start in my interview, it was so clear what brilliant people BSBI has, and in all the talks and discussions I've had with BSBI people since, they're fantastic, and there's a deep history and continuity of knowledge that the society and its people represent. And that also those values that you've identified are so very much chime with my values: a love of plant, intrepid, inclusive, and inquisitive. And I think this slide just sums up some of those values really well. So it's a small organisation, but it has a big impact. And that, I think, is shown us also through some of the talks we're seeing. And it was wonderful to hear Simon's talk about that crystal ball and what he's doing with the help of our data. So moving on to the next slide. I've been really impressed too with the work that you've done in coming together to discuss and develop our strategic plan for the next 3 years. And it's looked at what's unique about BSBI and how we can most make the difference for wild plants and ensure that wild plants thrive and are valued. And that's coming together to look at our vision, our purpose, the 3 goals that we've got and our key priorities under those, and also our foundations, what we need to do to invest in the people and the organisation to make sure we can achieve the most for wild plants. Okay, so my first priority is moving on to the next slide. So the amazing people that we have supporting the community of botanists is a key priority, and making sure that we have the right capacity and support in place for the wonderful work that you as a community of botanists do. Also, making sure that we can all work effectively together across all the brilliant committees and parts of the organisation that BSBI has. So we've got the amazing Events and Communications Committee that organises events like this weekend. We've got the Skills and Training Committee, Science and Data Committee, and then we've got the country committees in Wales, in Scotland, in England and in Ireland. And bringing together all your ideas is really important, and making sure that you know how we can harness those ideas and how we can all work effectively together. And that's why one of our first priorities is working on a governance handbook that is working with those groups to show exactly how the organisation works and how we can work together most effectively. And then another priority is, one of the other things that's wonderful about BSBI is the skills and knowledge that you have and your willingness to share that in so many different ways through training and through publications and learning resources. And that's really important because of the many skills gaps that there are out there in botany and the lack of training in botany these days. So I really want to make sure that we're leading on building BSBI's programme of skills and training and signposting other training and skills that's out there for botanists. Next slide, please. And then there is the amazing data that you help us collect. And that data is underpinning so much, as Simon talked about in his talk earlier, and as he talks about tomorrow. And we've got really excited that we're going to have the data up to 2020 published in the new Atlas next year, thanks to a massive effort that's ongoing at the moment in terms of bringing it all together, and thanks to all the records that you've helped us collect and check. It's really exciting that for the first time we're going to have an online version of the Atlas as well as the printed version of the Atlas, and that online version will be interactive, and you'll be able to use sliders to look at how the data, for example, distribution data changes over time using sliders. And then also you'll be able to have the printed copy, which is in 2 volumes because of the large amount of information and photos that we'll have in the Atlas. And there'll be online summary publication for the Atlas as well. So also on data, moving on to the next slide. So it's important that we also use new approaches to our data and interpretation to influence key decisions and guide key decision making. So things like this picture don't happen. And this is tree planting on deep peat in Cumbria and destroying both, one of our best carbon stores, peat habitat, and also an important species-rich habitat. We need to make sure this doesn't happen, and the data that you help us collect can help us ensure that. Can I have the next slide, please? So instead of that what we need to do is make sure we're putting our data in the heart of decisions. And I've been really, really excited to hear since joining BSBI about the botanical heat maps that Kevin Walker, our head of science, has been developing along with partners. And these are to guide good light management decisions, and to use our records to look at positive habitat indicators and remotely identify where good sites for tree planting or other land use management, such as agri-environment schemes. So it's a priority for us in going forwards is to widen the use of these and widen the availability of them. And we're working with partners, including in Natural England and Forestry Commission. And there'll be talks tomorrow at the annual exhibition meeting about some of those uses tomorrow. And then moving on to the next slide. Another priority is sharing the information, continuing to share information to drive a passion for plants through activities like our New Year's plant hunt and through further engagement projects. We need more people who value wild plants and can find and identify wild plants. And we need to broaden our engagement too. And that's why it's a priority for us, the work that the Botany for All group is doing at BSBI, led by Sarah Dalrymple. And that's why we're really excited that there's a panel discussion tomorrow, which we can learn so much from about how to build a diverse community of botanists. Have my next slide, please. So my experience in leading organizations shows it's really important to invest in strong foundations. And the priorities here are, as I discussed, making sure that our governance and the way we work as an organization is very clear, so everyone knows how they can get involved, how their ideas can be harnessed, but also that we have the right support in place for our wonderful people, our staff and our volunteers and our members, and all the passion, enthusiasm and dedication that you have. So we need to review our staff capacity and make sure we have the right capacity in place. And also we need to grow our income so that we can achieve more overall. And that's why it's wonderful to have Sarah Woods in place as our new fundraising manager. So as well as the membership, she's also leading on our income diversification strategy and increasing our fundraising mix. It's been a really interesting time to start at a new organization with COVID and the pandemic and a lot of things being online. So you can see here from the slides, a lot of my initial meetings have been online, which, I wish I could be meeting more of you face to face, but it's also been an opportunity to zoom in to our activities all over the UK. And you can see down in the bottom left me joining the Committee for Wales down there. And I've also zoomed into various other committee meetings and activities across the country. And thankfully, we are now beginning to get back to face-to-face meetings as well. So in summary, if I can have my next slide, please. I hope this has given you an insight into a bit more about my background and what I can bring to BSBI, my roots, but also my impressions of BSBI's roots, what makes it so special as a society, and what we want to do in our shoots growing forward, our plans and priorities, and what I want to focus on first in taking that forward. And I just want to say a big thank you for all you're doing through us and in partnership with us. Thank you so much for all you do. And thank you for the very warm welcome that you've given me. Thank you.